"Don't bother coming for Thanksgiving," my mom said coldly. I just smiled and replied, "Then don't bother using my card." That night, I canceled their gas, groceries, and mortgage autopay, and let the cold remind them who was really providing. Thanksgiving had always been more of a performance than a celebration in my family. My parents would throw a lavish dinner for the sake of appearances, invite relatives we barely saw, and pretend everything was fine. I used to go along with it, wearing a nice shirt, keeping my head down, nodding when expected. But this year was different. The call came on a Tuesday evening. My mother's voice was sharp, no preamble, no warmth. "Don't bother coming for Thanksgiving," she said. I didn't flinch. I'd felt this shift building for months. They'd stopped pretending to like me the day I stopped financing their lives without question. So I smiled calmly, even though she couldn't see it, and said, "Then don't bother using my card." The silence that followed told me she hadn't expected that. For years I'd been paying their gas, their groceries, even the mortgage on their house, quietly, an unspoken deal. My money for their conditional acceptance. But lately, resentment had started to leak through in little barbs. Snide remarks about how I thought I was too good for the family, just because I'd made it on my own. They didn't see it as help, they saw it as leverage. And when I started asking questions, why is the grocery bill over $900 again? Why is the gas being used for non-commutes? They got defensive. That call was the last straw. So that night I logged into all the autopay accounts and canceled every single one: gas, groceries, mortgage. I even removed them from my Costco co-membership. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. I'd been paying for their comfort at the expense of my peace. It wasn't anger I felt, it was clarity. I turned off the kitchen light and sat in the quiet, imagining the moment they'd realize their cards weren't working. When the pump stopped midway, when the grocery cashier asked for another form of payment, when the mortgage notification bounced back with insufficient funds. Let the cold remind them who was really providing. I wasn't being spiteful, I was being honest. That house was built on my silence, and now silence wasn't something they could afford. I didn't expect a thank you. I'd stopped hoping for one years ago. But I also didn't expect the complete silence after I pulled the plug. 3 days passed before I heard anything. No call, no text, just quiet. Then finally, a single message from my dad. "There's something wrong with the bank. Grocery card declined." I didn't respond. I'd already moved the funds into a different account. They had their own incomes, modest, but enough to get by if they actually budgeted. But they lived like money was infinite because they thought I was infinite. That weekend, I drove to the city and walked into a building they didn't even know I owned. For apartments, 3 rented out and 1 I kept for myself on weekends. My quiet place. Not extravagant, just clean, safe, and mine. I'd paid it off in cash 2 years ago. I sat in the living room, looking out the window at the street below, and pulled out my laptop. It was time to reorganize everything. First, I rerouted my accounts. New banks, 2 layers of passwords, dual authentication on everything. I closed the shared family phone plan and moved mine to a solo line. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I booked an appointment with an estate planner. Not because I had an empire, but because I was done letting them assume they were entitled to whatever I'd built. I'd been the quiet one, the boring kid, the stable brother who never needed help. But they missed the fact that being stable didn't mean I was stupid. I'd watched my older sister fake her way through 2 failed startups. Borrowing money from our parents they didn't have, money I later quietly replaced to keep them afloat. I watched my younger brother blow through a trust fund meant to help him buy a home. I saw it all. I just didn't say anything, until now. My phone buzzed again. This time, a voicemail from my mom. I didn't listen to it right away. I knew the tone before I heard the words. Wounded, indignant, pretending to be confused. But I wasn't confused anymore. I walked into the bedroom, opened the safe, and looked at the folder I'd labeled family loans. It contained every dollar, every receipt, every time I'd bailed them out. I'd never shared it, never rubbed it in their faces. But it was time to stop pretending I owed them silence just because I could afford to carry the weight. This wasn't a revenge tour, it was a shift. I was done playing the quiet provider in the background of a family that never saw me as anything more than a wallet in a chair. They told me not to come for Thanksgiving. Fine. I was going to show them exactly what happened when the person they dismissed stopped playing his role. The voicemail wasn't just from my mom. It was from someone spiraling. She didn't start with an apology or even a question. She opened with accusations. How irresponsible it was to cancel things without warning. how cruel I'd become, how I was punishing them like they were criminals. Then came the guilt trip. Your father is stressed beyond belief. We don't even know how we're going to make December's payment. Not mortgage, not utilities, just payment, as if they were juggling debts I never knew about. I didn't call her back. The next week, I got an email from my sister, short, clipped, and passive-aggressive. She mentioned how everyone was talking about how I'd abandoned the family. No details, just vague accusations. She made sure to remind me that it was Mom and Dad who raised you, as if that fact alone gave them lifetime access to my bank account. 2 days later, my aunt texted me asking why my parents were having money problems. The story had clearly spread, but the version they were telling wasn't the truth. I could see the outlines of the narrative already forming. Ungrateful son turns his back on aging parents after everything they did for him. So I did what I should have done a long time ago. I sent out one email, just one, to the extended family. The subject line read, "Since everyone's asking," with a PDF attached. It included a timeline of every payment I'd made on my parents' behalf over the last 5 years: gas, groceries, utilities, mortgage. I even included the tuition payments I made for my brother when he couldn't get a loan, and the business loan I forgave when my sister's company tanked. I didn't editorialize, no insults, no jabs, just numbers. I ended the email with a single sentence: "I'm not angry. I'm just done." That night, my phone rang 10 times. I didn't answer once. By morning, the silence had shifted, not the cold kind, but a quiet born of reckoning. My cousin forwarded me a screenshot of a group chat I wasn't supposed to be in. My sister was panicking, my mom defensive, my dad hadn't replied at all. And that was the moment I knew the collapse wasn't financial. It was structural. They built their relationships on unspoken debts, on emotional iOS that only ever flowed one way, toward them. Now that the current had stopped, the rot was visible. People started reaching out quietly. An uncle emailed me a thank you. My cousin asked if I wanted to spend Christmas with them this year instead. The picture was changing slowly, but enough to see it. The thing about being used is you don't realize how deep it goes until you stop allowing it. Then you watch the people you once protected fumble to replace the version of you they created. The one who never said no. Let them. I wasn't going back. They didn't come to me directly at first. My sister sent her husband. He called under the guise of just trying to talk things out, saying he wanted to clear the air and that everyone's feeling a little hurt right now. I told him calmly that my inbox was closed for anyone speaking on someone else's behalf. If they had something to say, they could say it themselves. 3 days later, I got the invitation. Not for Thanksgiving, obviously. That ship had sunk weeks ago. But to a family dinner the following Sunday. It was a trap, and I knew it. But I went anyway. I didn't go to explain myself. I didn't go to mend anything. I went because part of healing, real healing, sometimes means facing the thing that broke you with your back straight and your voice steady. The house looked the same. Too polished, too sterile, candles burning for show, china no one actually liked. A table set for 7, but all eyes on me when I walked in. Nobody said anything for a long moment. My mother broke the silence first. "We're not sure what happened to you." I let the sentence hang. I wasn't going to fill the gap for her. Then my dad leaned forward. "You've humiliated us." That one got a reaction from me, not anger, just disbelief. Humiliation was the word. Not gratitude, not regret, not even confusion. Just how dare you show them what we've taken from you. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lash out. I just spoke clearly. I said I had no interest in a performance dinner. That I wasn't interested in forgiveness without accountability. That no one in the room had even attempted to ask why I'd done what I did. They were only interested in how it made them look. Then I pulled out a folder, paper copies this time, the same documents I'd sent the extended family, and placed it gently in front of my father. I looked at my mother. "You said not to bother coming for Thanksgiving," I said, my voice level. "You made the call. I just listened." She tried to speak, but I kept going. I told them I wasn't angry anymore. I was exhausted. That carrying a family doesn't mean being crushed by them, and that love without respect is just emotional debt. I was done paying interest on something that never grew in value. My sister's face went red. My brother wouldn't meet my eyes. I stood up and told them they could reach out if, and when they were ready to talk like adults, not like people used to being obeyed. As I turned to leave, my mom asked quietly this time, "So what now?" I paused in the doorway. "Now," I said, "you figure out who you are when I'm not footing the bill." They didn't call for a long time after that dinner. No dramatic showdown, no screaming, just silence. Not the kind they used to weaponize, but the real kind, awkward, uncertain, new, a quiet where they didn't know how to exist without someone absorbing their noise. It had always been like that. When I was younger, I thought the way to keep things calm was to shrink myself, be the fixer, the helper, the one who paid the bill, smiled through the insult, cleaned up the mess behind the scenes. But after that night, the weight left my chest, not all at once, but noticeably. I started sleeping better. My weekends weren't spent reviewing credit card statements or wondering what lie I'd hear next about emergency expenses. I went on a short solo trip. No guilt, just air and quiet, and a version of myself that didn't feel tethered to someone else's definition of family. The extended family mostly backed off after the email. A few stayed in touch. Some even apologized for their assumptions. But I wasn't chasing validation. I just wanted neutrality. No more secrets. No more obligations disguised as love. 3 months later, I got a letter in the mail. Not a call, a letter from my dad. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't an attack either. It was short. He wrote that they were trying to manage things and admitted they hadn't realized how much they'd relied on me. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just said he understood if I needed more time. I didn't write back. Forgiveness isn't a performance either. It's a process. I wasn't angry. I just didn't want to go back. By then I'd bought a house. Nothing fancy, just enough for me. My books, my dog, and the quiet. I paid for it in full. Not out of pride, but because I was finally building something that wasn't for them. No one else's name on the deed. No one else holding the strings. Sometimes I think about that Thanksgiving. The call that started it all. How cold her voice was. How easy it had been for her to cut me off when she thought she didn't need me anymore. And how quietly the house must have felt when the gas shut off. When the groceries didn't go through. When the bills came. And for once, no one bailed them out. They told me not to come, so I didn't. But I didn't disappear. I just reclaimed what was always mine. My time, my energy, my name. Some families teach you love. Mine taught me boundaries. And for the first time in my life, I finally knew the difference. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment with your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button for more content like this. Your support means everything and helps the channel grow. Thanks for watching.